exercises also done on critical thinking. Now, I'm going to cover some aspects of critical thinking in this course in between, and then Sumit ma'am will come back and she will talk about fallacies and other things. So, what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to explain that first. That first thing is that I don't want, we have two classes scheduled back to back here now till 4:15 and 4:20, but you don't have to get afraid of that. So I don't want to drag the classes. If I want to create a class in which you and I are engaged and we are learning something. And if you are not learning something, then it is better that we don't engage in the class. Okay. So this is my objective here. And this is a subject, this is critical thinking is something which we have to consciously develop because, if I think, and again, we'll talk about reasons, we'll talk about logic and all these things. But there is a concept called heuristics, which is basically a shortcut to make decisions. Okay. And we all are very much, we all use it. And there is nothing wrong or right here. Okay. Heuristics can be right also. But I personally feel from my heuristics, I don't have the study or to back my claim. But I think as a country, we will have, I think, the lowest percentage in terms of logic and critical thinking. I think we would be one at the very bottom, India as a country. And I'm sure that once you look around yourself, you will also realize these things. However, there is an issue because we have not compared it with other countries. Like right now, at your interaction will be very much limited to Indians, so you don't know how other countries feel. But overall, by the look of things, by the news articles, by the comments, by how people talk and what people talk, so you get. But the point here is that we also have a very large population. So anything which is maybe in terms of absolute numbers, we are very, very large. So even if as a percentage, we might be doing poor, but overall in terms of numbers, it becomes a mass. So that's why it overshadows everyone. So maybe we have illogical and uncritical thinkers a lot, a small percentage, but are they using the media so much that they overshadow all the other countries in terms of logic and illogical talks and all these things. So overall, that's why I feel introducing a subject like critical thinking in a course like MBA is very important because you people will somehow go in your professional lives and you will make decisions and all. And in that, the logic which you use for your decisions becomes very important, and because somehow it is also felt that MBAs and people who are at least, because in India, only 3% people, or less than 3% people go for post-graduation. Okay, so postgraduates are only less than 3%. So in Aligarh, it looks like, oh, everyone is a postgraduate. So again, that we'll come to that. That's availability bias. Basically, we'll talk about that. That's kind of a bias. Because that's what is news around us and what we are surrounded by us. We feel that is the reality. Okay, so you are already an elite in terms of that, only in 3% doing post graduation, and you will be acquiring some leadership positions hopefully in the future. And in those positions, so how you make your decisions should be based on solid logic. Should be based, but we don't know how will it end up. So we never know. So this is the endeavor, actually. This is the objective of introducing this course. I think all the IIMs today, all the big institutes have also introduced critical thinking as a fundamental, as a basic course in there. And it's also called, it's basically one of the skill-oriented course. So it's basically a skill. Why it is called a skill? Because skills are learned. Okay, you can learn a skill, you can master a skill if you practice properly. So this course is introduced for that purpose. Now, what we are going to do today, overall, what I'm going to do with you, with my part, is that I'll talk briefly about what is what I feel what critical thinking, what are the things to be considered, and some examples about that, and what are some of the obstacles in critical thinking. Okay, so we have to understand the roadblocks and obstacles, then only we can overcome them. And if we are conscious about those obstacles, then overcoming them becomes a little bit easy. So what the plan for today is that we are going to talk about certain things, so 15 minutes, and then we are going to talk about some obstacles. And primarily, I'll be talking about 3 obstacles in critical thinking, that why they stop us from thinking properly. And then what we will do, we will end today's class with a small quiz. Okay. So if you are not attentive in the first 20, 30 minutes, you will not be able to do good in that quiz. Okay. And for that quiz, I would request all of you to keep your mobile phones with you. Okay. So you will be using your mobile phones for that quiz. And I'll tell you how we are going to go about it. And it will be a live quiz. Everyone is going to participate in that quiz in a live. So we will have a winner live, hopefully. So the person who is most attentive will obviously be the winner. So that's the plan for today. In the next session, we are going to talk about some of the frameworks and tools which are used for critical thinking, that how you can develop those repertoire of asking questions, maybe for example, or what are some of the tools on framework. The third is we are going to talk about, very interestingly, a concept called arguments. Okay. So our whole conversation with anyone is made up of arguments. So we give arguments in favor of what we think, and there are reasons. So there is the whole structure of argument. There are premises and there are conclusions. So we will break these things down. And arguments, there are good arguments, there are bad arguments. Okay. So we'll talk about that. What are good arguments? What are bad arguments? Okay. So we'll talk about in detail. We'll talk about there are 2 kinds of inductive and deductive arguments, and how they are made up of, and what you call a good argument, what you call a bad argument. And then we will, in the end, we are going to also, at the last leg of what I'm going to cover, is that how do you evaluate things? Okay. You got a piece of information. Okay. You get a piece of information. You get a tweet. So how do you evaluate that? Okay. So that's the last part which we are going to do, and we are going to do some exercises. In all of these classes, I would like you to participate and I would like you to contribute, because unless you do that, there is but just by listening to someone, you are not going to learn that skill of critical thinking. So you have to practice thinking critically. Okay. And there will be some things which we will do asynchronously also. Maybe I will pose a question on WhatsApp, and I would expect that some people will share. Your experiences related to that, and it is just very general things. Please understand this. So my objective is not that you pass critical thinking exam with flying colors. That may be your objective, not my objective. Okay. So I'm very clear about it. I don't care about what your marks or grades will be. That is for you to care. Okay. My objective is, yes, that's what I want to share with you. My objective is that you develop a sense of thinking, a critical thinking, in which I can proudly say that my students, they are logical. When they are giving an argument, they are logical. Okay. They are giving better arguments. So my students are better in terms of giving solid arguments. My students can make a judgment about the information, whether it is the relevant information or whether it is someone trying to manipulate them. Okay. That is a skill my students have developed. That is my objective. Okay. So I can only fulfill that objective if you are ready. If you decide to think properly, if you decide to practice this skill, then only you will become good at this. So I will share a few things with you, and then we are going to. So at this class, I don't want to keep it very long. So can all of you see this screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we are going to talk about critical and logical thinking. And in this class, our objective is to understand what is critical thinking. and what are some of the obstacles in thinking critically. Okay, these are the two objectives, primary. And I've already told you that how a course like this can help you learn. So what you can hope to learn from this course, I've already told you that you can hope to learn some of the tools and techniques to understand arguments, or to make logical arguments, to evaluate things. Okay, so that's what what you can hope to learn in this course. Now, essentially, what critical thinking is actually is aiming for you is that it's the main aim is to ensure that we have good reasons for our beliefs. We all have our beliefs. We all believe in things. When we see things, we have our preconceived notions also. We believe certain things. Now, what this course talks about, or what critical thinking talks about, that you should have good reasons. Now, what do we mean by good reason? There can be good reason, there can be bad reason. Say, for example, I have a colleague, and I am discussing with my colleague, Dr. Lame, and we have another colleague, say it is a fictitious colleague named Rohit. Okay. Now, we have a meeting today in the department. Okay. And there is a entrepreneurship committee meeting. So I asked Dr. Lame, do you think that Rohit will be there in the meeting? Now, Dr. Lame gives me the reason that no, I don't think that Rohit will be there in the meeting, because meetings always go bad when Rohit is there. Now, what do you think? What kind of argument this is? It is a good reason to believe that Rohit will not be there in the meeting?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So, what Dr. Lames told me, that meetings always go bad when Rohit is there. So, is it a reason for Rohit will not be there in the meeting? The answer is no. Is it probably we are hoping that it is a good reason to hope that Rohit do not attend the meeting, because when Rohit is there, meeting always go bad. So I again asked Dr. Lame, I don't think that this is a solid argument, a solid reason for this. What do you think? So what he says that, okay, he rephrases it. He said that, let me just rephrase. So he rephrases and he says that Rohit hates meetings and hardly ever comes to them. That is the first thing he says. And secondly, Rohit only turns up in the meetings when there is something important on the agenda. And there is nothing on this afternoon's agenda that touches on anything that Rohit considers important, for example. So now he gives me these three reasons that usually Rohit hates meetings and he hardly comes to meeting. And there is nothing on that agenda today which basically is important for Rohit, and Rohit only turns up when something is important for him. So these are three reasons. Now, what do you think of these reasons? Are these reasons good enough to consider, to make a conclusion that Rohit will not attend today's meeting? What do you think?
Yes, sir, this justifies.
The last reason, sir, is more.
But can we conclusively say that Rohit will not be there in today's meeting with these reasons?
No, sir. No, sir.
We cannot conclusively say that these are good, these are better reasons. So remember one thing, that reasons are not always absolute. Okay. So we have good reasons, we have bad reasons. Earlier, it was a completely bad reason. It is okay reasons. Okay. Now, Lame sir says to me, okay, now let me just tell you why Rohit will not attend today's meeting. He gives me another reason. He says that Rohit almost never comes to meeting because he hates them. That is the assumption which Ram. These are all basically what Ramesh sir has told me. These are all assumptions. Okay. Rohit only turns up when there is something important and there is nothing important on the agenda that Rohit cares about. Okay. So all of them are best assumptions about whether Rohit will attend the meeting or not. Then Ramesh sir says that, okay, Rohit is in London on a sabbatical. So he will not be physically present in the meeting today because he was there on the Skype meeting earlier today with him. So Lame sir says that I had a meeting with him in the morning on Skype. He was in London. That is why Rohit is not going to attend today's meeting. Now, what do you think? Are these reasons good enough to now conclusively say that Rohit will not be there in today's meeting?
Yes, sir.
So now we can say that these are good enough reasons. But again, that's not 100% sure. Maybe Rohit is like some computer genius or who has faked who has hacked Skype and basically fooled Lame sir and attended the meeting from somewhere else and said that I'm in London. Okay, that is also possible. Okay, or assuming. So now what I can do is that I can my premise is if the meeting is in Aligarh and London is in England, and London is roughly a 12-hour trip from Aligarh. Okay, so 10 hours journey by plane, fastest plane. Okay, and then 2 hours by road. And Rohit is in London. So we can safely assume that if the meeting, say for example, is at 4 p.m., that Rohit will not attend the meeting. So now we are now in a position to say that this is the argument that Rohit will not attend the meeting holds something. So when we give an argument, there has to be a reason for that, and that reason can be different kinds of reasons, and we have to become very sure. So our reasons, the quality of our reasoning has to be up to the mark when we are showing a belief in some aspect of that. Okay. Now this is one issue. Now there can be many issues about which we have our beliefs. Okay. Now this is one trivial thing about a meeting, about someone else. Now say for example, I in the morning decide to I have a decision to make that whether should I come to the department, should I go to the department by my car, or should I walk to the department? Now it is based on different reasons. Okay, so the reason can be maybe I have to estimate the time what it takes to reach to the department. I have to also understand because there's weather, and walking may I can perspire a lot by walking to the department. Or what is the approximate time which it takes to go from one to the department from my home, and what is the road conditions of the road if there is no footpath from here to the department. So all of these. So my safety issue is also there. So when you are considering anything, so there can be a lot of different things which you have to consider when you make a decision. And those get influenced by a lot of different things. So evaluating the reasons, we have to evaluate the reasons to believe one over the other. So always remember that when you are thinking critically, what you are doing is that you are evaluating the reasons. So there can be good reasons, there can be bad reasons, and there can be relevant reasons for you, and there can be irrelevant reasons for you. Now, like I said, that there can be driving or walking to office, or they can be, this is a very ordinary issue, but you can also have to think about things which are bigger issues, bigger questions, like privacy in terms of when you are using internet, or cyber security, or you are concerned about what is Taliban doing. So various conflicts and wars in our country, what is happening in Palestine, what is happening in US, what is happening somewhere else. So you may be concerned about what is coming in the newspapers. Or say, for example, global warming. When we talk about global warming, so then I can it's again, we are taking it to another level. And many a times it happens that these ordinary issues are basically connected to our bigger issues also. Now, say, for example, if I say, when we talk about global warming, I say that global warming is overrated. Global warming is overrated. Now, you can ask me, why do you think so? Why do you say so? And I say that, see, during my childhood, we had long summers. And it was like, today we don't even have those summers. Summers are not that long. It starts raining and all these things. When I was a child, we had used to have very long summers. Okay. That's what I think that global warming is overrated. Now, do you think that it's a good reason for believing that global warming is overrated?
No, sir. It's a very poor reason.
So negating all the scientific consensus, scientific evidence around global warming is okay. Now, but do you think that we make all these kind of decisions in everyday life? Corona is farce. Nobody is having corona. Before the second wave, everyone, no, in the minds of the people, it's all happening in Delhi. I went to a place. It's a small town in UP. If you have in Western UP, I don't know whether you have heard about that road. There's a place called near Gajrola. Okay, so there is a small town, and I have some ancestral roots there, and there was a small gathering was there, and people no mask and nothing and all. Corona, Delhi वालों को होता है corona. यहाँ नहीं होता corona. So that is the reasoning. Okay. So and a lot of other reasoning. See, we eat a lot of fresh things. Okay. So our immunity is very strong. Okay. And there was reasoning that we eat meat. That is why Corona. There are people who have we eat meat a lot. So that is we are carnivorous, and so that is why our immunity is very strong. So that is the reasoning. So do you think that there will always be reasons, even for very, very big issues? There will be all kinds of reasons. And when you think about these reasons, you will find that reasons can be from everywhere. So people will be, when you look at yourself, you are in center, and everybody, there is something or the other who is trying to influence you with some message or the other. Maybe I am, as a lecturer, trying to give you or influence you about the importance of critical thinking. I am giving you some arguments. Advertisers all the time do this with different kinds of messaging. Okay, so what really worked in terms of messaging. I remember there's a very important case. I think you also should note that case. Toothpaste. Toothpaste is a product which is very old. In fact, 1800s, 1850s, 60s, toothpaste, Colgate is a very old company. Okay. So Colgate started manufacturing in 1850, 60s. You can find the pictures, still you can find those pictures of 1870s, 1880s, Colgate. And at that time, it was not the tube in which it used to come. It was basically a powder. Later we also had an Indian version, which was not Colgate, but we had the Dant Manjan here, the black one. Have you seen that? Bandar Chhap Dant Manjan, monkey brand. So I have used it in my childhood. So when you used to go to our ancestral places, the villages and all, so we used to have those Bandar Chhap very, very well. So then, but what really changed the game for this industry was not anything logical. Was actually what changed the game for this was the addition of mint. When Colgate added mint flavor to the Colgate paste, actually, then the sales started shooting, and the messaging was, because mint, the breath becomes very pleasant. Okay, minty breath. And it has a social norm. Because say if you have a bad breath, people will not be willing to come near you. Okay, that was the message. But if you look at the logic, there is no logic behind it. We all know the real logic is, if you don't do daily brush, what will happen to your teeth? You can imagine. So there is all kind of diseases, dental problems, and dental hygiene is a very separate issue. then what you look at, that people having you having minty breath and people coming and still, that kind of advertising still dominates this industry. You see the ad of close up, you see that, so everyone talks about that, and that has been very, very effective. So people, advertisers will give you certain things, radio hosts will give you certain reasons for, then health authorities today, at least you have seen that messaging in the times of corona, health authorities giving different kinds of messages and all, for you to change your stance about things, to change about corona. Dhilai nahi, that's Amitabh Bachchan, so he's giving in his heavy voice these messages, okay, corona abhi khatam nahi hua hai, and all these kind of messages. So friends always trying to influence you with different reasons for their choices of things. Now, you after second semester, many of you will be taking up electives, okay, electives and specializations in MBA, and just open up your mind at what kind of reasoning you will hear for different kind of people. Okay, so reasoning will be, ये टीचर 8 बजे क्लास लेते हैं, इनकी क्लास नहीं करेंगे, ये टीचर ये मार्क्स कम देते हैं, इनकी क्लास नहीं करेंगे, सो वो उनका सब्जेक्ट लेते हैं क्योंकि अब चॉइस है ना, 8 बजे वाली क्लास नहीं करनी है, so you go to, so these kind of arguments will be there. But if you look at the larger picture, are these good arguments to choose a subject? Are these good arguments? So are these logical arguments? So are these strong arguments? But the answer is no. But we make these kind of arguments every day, and we are influenced by these kind of arguments. So this course is about this, that when you hear these kind of messages from everywhere, so pause a bit and think about what is the rationale behind this. Are the reasons really proper reasons? Are they are, so again, very easy to get into technical things. So again, I can, like when we talk about arguments and premise and conclusion, you can all decode it. But what I am more interested is that on the spur of a moment, when you are making decisions in your daily life, so as a critical thinker, you can just pause a bit and think about, is it the right thing? Is it the kind of messages we get on WhatsApp? Am I forwarding it? Am I forwarding a credible message? So is it from a credible source? Have we ever thought about it? Have we ever thought about it? What is the history lesson is there in that? So is it really credible? This is our history. Is it really? So these are the kind of things which you have to think if you are a critical thinker. Okay. So that's what you do. But we make all kinds of shortcuts. So you may all think that this is basically a skill which makes us human, and we should all be very good at making these kind of judgments. But is it so? Is it so? The answer is that we are not very good, and there are very simple errors, very simple things which basically influence our decisions. And in fact, if you look at the field of behavioral science today, it's very interesting. There are around 200 biases which are listed on Wikipedia, which influence our brains. Okay, there's so many biases are there, and we don't even realize these biases. And today there is a whole lot of studies going on around these biases, which are very interesting and very, very good to help you. Now, let us talk about some of the obstacles. We'll talk about 3 obstacles today, not much. Okay, 3 obstacles which really impact our decision making. So I'll ask you to read this. This is Francis Bacon, and what he's saying, that humans have a deep-seated tendency to prefer information that confirms their existing positions. Okay, once they've come to a view about something, they see the evidence that supports that view, and they overlook the evidence that doesn't. Now, this is Francis Bacon, and he is talking, he's very old. Okay, he's talking about this in 1600. So humans have a deep-seated tendency to prefer information that confirm their existing positions. Now, I'll give you an example here. There are so many examples out there. Okay, but say there was a study conducted in US in which what happened that there were people who who were fingerprints experts, and uh, they were supposed to basically match the fingerprints of the people who committed crime with the crime, okay, from the crime scene. So they did that, and some of it at that time they made an inconclusive decision that this is not the fingerprint, or the fingerprint is not matching properly. Okay, then what happened? Then after around 10 years, technology also improved. Technology also improved. And then when the scanning was done of these fingerprints, and there was matching done, it was found that uh, most of these fingerprints were matching actually. So the fingerprint experts were wrong on that account. But then a study was conducted. This was not shown to fingerprint experts that you are wrong. But what it was done, that they were asked again to come back and re-evaluate the evidence and match the following. Okay. Now, half of them were shown, were told that earlier you made this decision, that you actually said that the fingerprints are not matching. Okay. Half of them were said that. For other half, nothing was told to them. Nothing was told to them. They said that these are the fingerprints, and this is the crime, and crime scene prints. Please match them. So the result was very surprising. The people who were now neutral, they did not know whether what their earlier stand was, and they didn't knew that they had an earlier stand also. So majority of them matched it properly. They matched it properly, and they said almost 70-80% of the people of the experts said that this is from the crime scene and the person is guilty. Okay, that's it. For the other half, who were told that you had earlier said that these fingerprints do not match, almost 80-90% of the people, almost 90% of the people said that these do not match. But because they were confirming their earlier stand. This is called confirmation bias. So it's like, एक बार जो मैंने commitment कर लिया, फिर मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता. Okay, so this is like everyone, we all have our Salman Khan inside us. Okay, so एक बार तो commitment हो गया. So this is a tendency among a lot of us. So this is called basically a confirmation bias. So what we have in our beliefs, we try to confirm, we try to search for facts which confirm our beliefs instead of looking at the objective facts. There are a lot of people I see in this world, even when they have taken up a stand about certain things, whether that stand has been right or wrong, it doesn't matter. They will try to give all kinds of arguments to justify that stand. And now I'm going to talk about, like, the moment you involve politics in this, and you can see that what happens. Okay, the moment you involve politics in this, what happens? I'm sure all of you have your political beliefs. You think that this party is good, this party is bad, this ideology is good, this ideology is bad. Okay, what about the objective facts? Nobody is concerned about the objective facts, and this confirmation bias leads to polarization. And America is highly polarized today. India is highly polarized. The world is getting polarized because, any politician or any political party will not make decisions which are 100% right or 100% wrong. Okay, it is somewhere in between. We live in gray, but when we think in black and white. We think in black and white. So, say for example, what is observed here, that people who say that Arnab Goswami is basically basically a farce, or he is basically a very bad journalist, but there is a certain section of the population who will always watch Arnab Goswami. and believe what Arnab Goswami said. On the other side, there are always people who will watch NDTV and they will say that Ravish Kumar is basically what he's saying, that he is on the other side. It doesn't matter whether Ravish is right or Arnab is right. Okay. The supporters in India, what happens, the supporters of BJP will favor Arnab Goswami no matter how rubbish he is talking about. The supporters of Congress will support Ravish Kumar no matter how wrong Ravish Kumar may be on certain topics. It doesn't matter. So we will always, this tendency basically, and in America, this tendency has been observed. There are studies which have been conducted, which says that the news, because there what happens, Fox News is like Republic TV there. Okay. So the equivalent of Republic or Zee TV is Fox News there. So Fox News basically is more pro-Trump and CNN is more pro-Joe Biden. Okay. So the people who watch Fox News will always watch Fox News and believe what Fox News is saying. Okay. Whether it is right or wrong. The people who watch CNN will continue to buy CNN and they will continue to buy on their arguments of whether there is logic or not. So they will confirm. They will try to find out something to confirm their beliefs. Okay. So we all are in this. So this confirmation bias is a very strong bias which prevents us from thinking logically. Anyone who has an example about this confirmation bias, I'm sure that all of you are smiling, so you must be having something or the other in your mind. So you all agree with this? Does it happen, confirmation bias?
Yes, sir. I think that it also happens with the religions. Any news which is related to something like which kind of proves that okay, this is something related which was there in certain religion, and this is activation and this is found out. So that those religious people like okay, this is what proves.
Even in simple debates, me and my friend Rishabh Pant is a very bad wicket keeper. Now this is a debate which I am having with my friend. Okay. Now you will see that there are all kinds of Rishabh Pant has hit a century in say England and it doesn't matter. Okay. For him, Rishabh Pant is a very bad wicket keeper. Okay. So whatever good or bad, so he will try to confirm something or the other. So there is an incident which happened off the field. Okay. So Rishabh Pant gave a very bad kind of answer to a press question. Okay. So my friend quoted that. See, Rishabh Pant. So does it show that Rishabh Pant is a bad wicket keeper? So the answer is no, but we have all this confirmation. But once we have taken a stand, so we try to confirm that stand and support and find evidence from around us to support that stand. That's the bias, and it is a very strong bias among us. And what I have seen the top leaders, very proper intellectual top leader, learned leaders in the world, they don't hesitate in changing their stance. They don't hesitate in saying that I was wrong earlier. I have got this new information and now I think that I was wrong and this is the decision. You see so many examples in the world of good leaders. You will find that those are the people who will be objective in their approach, who will try to be as objective as possible. They will not stick to one stand and I believe something and I will find everything to support that. That's not their case. This happens. Okay. So that is the first optical, and we should be mindful of this first optical very, very clearly. Okay. Now, there is another question here for you. Are there more English words that start with the letter R? Like, for example, rotunda, robot, Rockies, or more that have R as their third letter? Say, for example, Terry's, mermaid, border. That's the first question. What do you think? Anyway, so we'll come back to this question. Now, if this question is asked at the first or the second question, let us look at the second question. Are you more likely to be attacked by a vicious dog or to be injured by your TV set? So, what is the tendency for people to give this answer?
Based on their past experience.
Based on the past experience, but what? Okay, yes, based on the past experience as well as the ability to process the information which is around us, what is available for us, what is more newsworthy. So your television set falling on your feet, or you get attacked by a dog, or someone get bitten by a dog, which is newsworthy. Bitten by a dog, actually. So our tendency is basically that we have all the information in the world, okay? But our decisions are usually made on the information which is very recent, which is very frequent, which is extreme or vivid or negative, which is very near to us. And that is called availability heuristics. Now, say, for example, if there is a war going on, if there has been an act of terrorism, say, for example, someone blasted some building somewhere and it is all over the news. And then this question is asked that are you more likely to die by a terrorist attack or in a road accident? This question was basically this research was conducted, and it was a news article which was there already about a terrorist act. And then it was asked that what is more likely? Are you to die in a terrorist attack is it more likely, or you are going to die in a say road accident? What do you think was the answer of the majority of the people? The majority, in fact, 90% of the people at that time said that we are more likely to die in a terrorist attack because, see, terrorist attacks are so common nowadays. Everywhere there's a terrorist attack. Okay. But if you look at statistically, do you really think that the chances of you dying in a terrorist attack versus dying on a road accident, the odds are completely different. And what our decision is made, basically, how we make our decision is based on the availability around us, which is more recent. Say, for example, you read something in the morning in the newspaper, and you make up your mind about certain things, which is more frequent, where you hear about more and more things. Like, for example, the words are. So thinking, if I give you this task of like noting down words which start with R, or the words which have R as the third letter, if I ask you to write it down, what do you think? How many of people will write which kind of words more?
First letter,
Yes, the one which start with R. The people are more likely to write those words first because they remember those words more often. So it is because the memory of the words with R is more vivid in our imagination. But in reality, what happens? That we judge the probability of an event by how quickly and easily examples of that event come to our mind, by how available they are to us, rather than by identifying all the alternatives and working out the real probabilities. This is very, very highly unlikely. Okay, so we don't know the real probabilities. We basically fall to this trap of what is availability bias. Okay, it is more likely that you get killed by a falling airplane or in a road accident. Now, if this is a question which comes to you, and before that, say for example, you see this news article. Road accidents are not reported in the newspapers more often compared to airplane crashes. Airplane crashes are more newsworthy, actually. So what is available in the news becomes our reference point, frequent reference point. Okay. So by making a judgment about things like this, a highly probable event, we might suppose will be more available than a rare event. But that's not always the case. Say for this example, if you look at the English letter R, words which start with R, they are only around 9,000, and the words which have R as their third letter will be around 23,000. So that's the difference. So, but if we ask people that which are more frequent, the answer is the words which start with R. So that is why availability bias is a very strong bias which can affect us. Okay, that's the second bias. Now, if we are thinking, well, we might suppose that if we make a particular choice on one occasion, we'd make the same choice if we are confronted with the same options in the same circumstances on another occasion. Do you think that it is correct? Read this.
The likelihood of the event that it will happen or it should happen. Which one?
Say if say for example, if we are given two choices, okay, for certain course of action, we are given you are given a course of action that these are the two probabilities of things, and if you are presented that same thing again, so you chose, say for example, A, option A. Now, if say in certain other circumstances, or I present you the same information again, do you think that you will make the same decision? You will again choose A? That is the question.
Generally, we tend to choose, sir, but that should be a comparison of the other, like the options in every situation. For example, sir, like we purchase mobile phones. So like there are really smaller like share of the mobile holders that they compare at each time they buying. But most of them, like if someone has bought like Samsung like some 5 years ago, so they'll stick to it each time they buy.
Yes. The answer to this is basically there is a tendency, or we make our decisions on the basis of how information is presented to us. And that is called framing effect. That is the third obstacle to critical thinking. Framing effect. Now, let me just give you one example here. Say this is, you are ill, and a doctor comes to you and say that, well, this is Patrick, say for example, Pratik, you can say Pratik, okay? Well, I realize you must be disappointed with your diagnosis, Pratik, and I know the treatment options don't look very good. It's a terminally ill disease, but I can offer you a new drug. But I have to admit, it only works in 50% of the cases. Now, what do you think Pratik will do? What do you think? Yes. Yes, Arham, what do you think?
Sir, I think he should take the chances.
You take the chances. But what the majority of the people think?
Pratik will not accept.
No, sir. 50% sound like really low.
50% is very low. Okay, so that's one. Now, let us look at this. That's the other option. Now, the other doctor comes and says, well, I realize you must be a bit disappointed in your diagnosis, Pratik, but we have found a fantastic progress in this area. And I can offer you a drug that has cured 50% of the cases. Now, what do you think?
So most people would go for it now.
Most people will go for it. So why? Because the same information has been presented in a positive tone. So that is also a tendency. That is called framing effect. That how you are framing the information basically impacts the decision which the people are going to take. And this has been used by marketers and advertisers a lot. Okay. So if you are framing certain things in a positive as a success, then the chances are people are going to be more influenced by that. Okay. So we are going to pick an option which is framed as success more often. So that is called framing effect. So a lot of the time, advertising messages, marketing messages, and all are framed as something like this. Okay. Now, say for example, I give you another example. If you are a health official, and now that your country is preparing for a disease outbreak, say for example, there is some Kala Azar or something like that, and it's expected to kill around 600 people in your area, 600 people. Okay, and there are two possible programs which the government can run, and you have to choose which one will be adopted. Okay, so say for example, you are given two options. Option one, if you choose one, A, you will be able to save 200 lives, 200 saved. Option B, you will there's a 1/3 probability of the 600 people, 1/3 probability that 1/3 of the 600 people will be saved, and 2/3 will not be saved. Now, what do you think? Which option will you choose?
A option.
So option B.
Option B. Okay.
Both are same.
When these options have been presented, this is the research, when these options have been presented to people, 72% of the people choose option A in this. However, if you look at it, both the options are same. Okay. Now, say for example, there's another probability. There's two options now that 400 people will die, and there is an option D, 1/3 probability no one will die, and 2/3 probability 600 people will die. Now, what do you think people chose in this?
So D.
D.
D. And almost 80% of the people chose D. But if you compare all of these together, you find that the options are almost same. Okay? The options are exactly same. It is just the framing which is taking place. $200 people saved, 400 people die of the 600 people. Is the same thing. 1/3 probability, 600 people saved, 2/3 probability no one saved, or 1/3 probability no one will die is exactly the same. If you calculate the numbers, all this information is same. All the options are equal.
But did they believe that why is it so? That why people choose?
Why is it so? Because the way it is framed, the way problems and solutions are framed in front of you, the options are framed in front of you, we are more likely to choose the options which are framed positively than negatively. That is a tendency, and that is called framing effect. Okay, so last but not the least, do you get headaches frequently? If so, how often? When this question was asked to people, they said, what do you think would be the number? So the average was, let me just tell you what the research is. The average was around, do you get headaches frequently? And if so, how often? So the majority of the people, the average time which they said that per week they used to get 2.5 times. That is the average, basically, headaches, 2.5. Versus, do you get headaches occasionally? And if so, how often? Okay, when this was asked, the same set of people in another time, they gave the answers. The average was 0.8 per week. So you're getting my point. that just by changing one word, how you are framing the question changes the answer. And that is what called the framing effect. So all of these three things we have talked about today. What we have talked about is the confirmation bias. We have talked about availability bias, and we have talked about framing effect. These three things impact our decision making a lot. In fact, they prevent us from being critical thinkers. Okay. So many times these kind of biases keep on coming into our life, which basically impacts our decision making a lot. Okay. Any doubts, any queries related to any of this? So anyone who has any query related to any of this? So far so good. We have what we have covered so far. That we covered that what is critical thinking and how we have to find reasons, and the reasons can be good, the reasons can be bad. So our job as critical thinkers will be to find better and better reasons for our choices which we make, for the arguments which we give. However, it is not that simple, because we have a tendency to be biased, and these biases can be because of many things. I have just taken three examples today of confirmation bias, of availability bias, of a framing effect. Okay, so there are around 200 biases which are there on Wikipedia, which you can look at. So there are so many things which affect our brain, and we basically use shortcuts. These are also called shortcuts, and these are heuristics. Heuristics are shortcuts which basically affect our decision making, and we make shortcuts to arrive at a decision. Now, heuristics many times are useful to make us quick decisions, to help us make quick decisions, but sometimes they lead to faulty decisions also, and illogical decisions also. So that's why beware of these heuristics. Okay. So now I would request all of you to take out your mobile phones. Okay. And we are going to have a very quick and very small quiz. And how you are going to be part of that quiz. Can all of you see this screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So now what you have to do, you have to go to this URL, joinmyquiz.com, and enter this game code 240817. Okay, joinmyquiz.com, and the quiz game code is 240817. All right. So Shazar has joined. Let us see others. Quickly, please do it. Very good. Quickly, quickly. Yes. Some people are yet to join. Please join fast. So we will wait for another 1 minute, final 1 minute. If people do not join, and I'll assume these people are not in the class. There is nothing left to my imagination. They are not in the class. Okay. Some people are waking up. All right. So now we have 37 participants. I don't know if you join late, then how will you move it? So we'll start the quiz. Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, I got a screen with the start button.
So I'm going to start the quiz now.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So ready? So every question will be popped up and there will be 4 options or 3 options. So you select the one and there will be a time limit to every option. And the ranking will be based on the people how much time they are taking. Okay, if there are 2 people who have answered correctly, but what is the time they have taken to answer it? Okay, that will also be counted here. All right, so let us start. Time is up. Okay. All right. So we have our leaderboard. Let us move on to the next question. Okay, so there is some changes in the leaderboard. Third question. Okay, not much change. All right, let us see. Next question. Okay, again some changes in the leaderboard. Very good. Okay. Okay. Okay, now we have a new leader. Okay. Okay. Let us see. Okay, not much change. Only 2 questions left. Okay, again, there is some change. Last, final question. Okay, there is some change in the last. All right, so we have our 3 winners. The first, Bakas, second, Zoya, and third. Who was the third? Okay,
Nidal.
Nidal. Yes. So congratulations to 3 of you. I hope that you enjoyed this quiz, and this quiz was not very tough, I guess. It was more for you to summarize what you have learned in today's session. And I hope it was an exercise which helped you enjoy this learning. And I hope you remember some of it, what we have discussed so far today. So if there are any doubts, if there are any queries related to anything which we have covered so far, otherwise we'll call it a day. Oh, it's complete silence. It's very after a quiz to see that this complete silence with black faces. It's very. You will not get any prize, Hamza, until you like. The prize will be for people who will keep their cameras on for the whole class. There is a prize for them. Otherwise, there's no prize for anyone. So everything else is secondary first. All right. So let's call it a day. I think I hope that it was okay with you. You people learned something today, and I hope that you take note of it. So we'll see you next week, and next week we'll start some other topics, and especially the tools and arguments. In that sense. All right, take care.
Thank you, sir.